Howdy, folks, and welcome to Saddle and Sixgun, your channel for tales of the Old West. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a story that's got it all: gunshots, mystery, and a love that blossoms against all odds. If you're anything like me, you appreciate a good yarn spun with grit and heart, so stick around and let's get started. Remember, if you enjoy these stories from the American West, please hit that like button and maybe even subscribe to Saddle and Sixgun for more tales from the wild frontier. We're aiming to bring you stories that'll take you back to a time when life was simpler, yet often more dangerous. I reckon there's still something romantic about the wide open spaces and the folks who carved out a life there. This story is one of those stories. The gunshot echoed through the pines, startling Vaughn Jameson as he crouched by the stream, filling his canteen. May 1876 had brought an early summer heat to Colorado territory, and the water's cool touch against his calloused hands offered a brief respite from the relentless sun. At 32, Vaughn had spent nearly half his life on horseback, chasing cattle and avoiding trouble across the western territories. But something about that single shot sent a chill down his spine despite the warmth of the day. "Easy, Dusk," he whispered to his dappled gray mare, who jerked her head up at the sound. Securing his canteen, Vaughn pulled his Winchester rifle from its leather scabbard and moved cautiously through the underbrush toward where he thought the shot had originated. He'd been trailing a small herd of strays for the better part of 2 days, having separated from the main outfit to bring back the wayward cattle. The Singing Arrow Ranch couldn't afford to lose even a few head with cattle prices what they were. His boss, Old Man Thornton, counted every steer like it was his own child. The forest thickened as Vaughn led Dusk deeper into the woods. Pine needles carpeted the ground, muffling their approach. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to subscribe to Saddle and Sixgun. We put out new videos every week. He strained his ears for any sound, voices, movement, anything that might indicate what that shot had been about. Hunting was common enough, but something in his gut told him this wasn't a hunter tracking deer. That's when he saw her. A woman stood with her back to him, frozen like a statue among the trees. Her dress, once fine by the looks of it, was torn and dirty, her dark hair falling loose down her back. She was staring at something on the ground that Vaughn couldn't yet see. "Madam," he called softly, not wanting to startle her. She whirled around, eyes wide with terror. Before he could say another word, she bolted like a frightened deer, weaving between the trees with surprising speed. "Wait," Van called hastily, tying Dusk to a low branch before giving chase. "I mean you no harm." The woman was quick, but Vaughn's long legs and knowledge of the terrain gave him an advantage. He caught up to her at a fallen log where she'd tripped and fallen to her knees. When he reached for her arm to help her up, she flinched away violently. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, showing his empty palms in a gesture of peace. "My name's Vaughn Jameson. I work for the Singing Arrow Ranch just south of here." The woman's dark eyes darted frantically, searching for escape. Up close, Van could see she was beautiful despite her disheveled appearance, high cheekbones, full lips, and eyes the color of strong coffee. A bruise colored her left cheek, and dried blood stained the collar of her dress. "Are you injured? Do you need help?" he asked gently. She remained utterly silent, her chest heaving with rapid breaths. Vaughn glanced back toward where he'd found her. "Was that your shot? Are you in danger? Do you like this story? How about subscribing to Saddle and Sixgun to encourage me to make more like this?" The woman said nothing, but her hands trembled. He noticed then that her fingers were stained with what looked like gunpowder and blood. "Let me help you," Vaughn said, slowly removing his bandana. "May I?" He gestured toward the blood on her neck. After a long moment of scrutiny, she gave an almost imperceptible nod. With careful movements, Vaughn dampened the cloth with water from his canteen and gently dabbed at the blood. She winced, but didn't pull away. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked. "Nothing. Not a sound. Can you speak at all?" Her eyes filled with tears, but her lips remained pressed firmly together. Vaughn sighed, tucking the bloodied bandana away. I need to see what happened back there. Will you come with me, or would you rather wait here with my horse? She glanced toward where Dusk was tied, then back to Vaughn. After a moment's hesitation, she rose to her feet and gestured for him to lead the way. They returned to the clearing where he'd first spotted her. Now Vaughn could see what she had been staring at. A man's body sprawled face down on the ground, a revolver a few feet from his outstretched hand. Blood pooled beneath him, soaking into the earth. You shot him? Vaughn asked quietly. The woman's face hardened, and she gave a single defiant nod. Vaughn approached the body cautiously, using his boot to turn the man over. The deceased was expensively dressed, with a fancy vest and gold watch chain. A bounty hunter, perhaps, or a gambler. The bullet had caught him square in the chest. Did he attack you? Vaughn asked, though he already suspected the answer. Another nod, more emphatic this time. Vaughn surveyed the scene, noting signs of a struggle, trampled undergrowth, the woman's torn dress, the bruise on her face. Self-defense. He'd seen enough to know that some men thought themselves entitled to whatever or whoever they wanted, especially when it came to a woman alone in the wilderness. We need to report this to the sheriff in Silvercliff, he said, but first, let's get you somewhere safe. My camp isn't far. I hope you like our channel. We are trying to keep history alive. Why not give Saddle and Sixgun a subscription and click the notification bell so you don't miss an episode? The woman hesitated, glancing between Vaughn and the dead man. I promise you'll be safe with me, Van said, meaning it. We'll sort this out proper. Sheriff Parker is a fair man. After what seemed like an eternity, she nodded and followed him back to where Dusk waited patiently. Vaughn helped her onto the saddle before swinging up behind her. She sat rigid in front of him, careful not to lean back against his chest despite the awkward position. It's about an hour's ride to my camp, he explained. Then tomorrow we can head to town. As they rode, Vaughn found himself acutely aware of her presence, the faint scent of lavender beneath the dirt and sweat, the way her hair occasionally brushed against his chin when Dusk navigated uneven ground. He kept his hands firmly on the reins, giving her as much space as possible on the saddle. The sun was beginning to set when they reached his modest camp beside a small tributary of the Colorado River. A simple lean-to, a fire pit, and his bedroll were all Vaughn had needed for his short excursion to round up strays. It's not much, he said as he helped her dismount, but it's dry and relatively safe. He busied himself rebuilding the fire while she stood watching his every move with those weary, dark eyes. Once flames were dancing merrily, he pulled jerky, beans, and coffee from his saddlebags. Hungry? He asked, offering her a strip of jerky. She accepted it cautiously, then devoured it with such speed that Vaughn immediately offered her another. She must have been starving. As night fell, Vaughn prepared coffee and set the beans to cooking. The woman remained silent, watching the fire with haunted eyes. I don't mean to pry, Van said finally, but I need to know what happened if I'm going to help you. Can you write? He offered her a small notebook and pencil he kept for tallying cattle. She took them gratefully and began to write with practiced penmanship. When she handed the notebook back, Vaughn read, My name is Sophia Grantham. That man was Lloyd Wilcox. He was transporting me against my will. Where was he taking you? Van asked. She wrote quickly. To his employer in Durango. I was abducted from my father's home in Denver 2 weeks ago. Van frowned. Does your father know where you are? Sophia shook her head and wrote, He's likely searching for me. He's Judge Edward Grantham of the Colorado Territorial Court. Vaughn whistled low. A judge's daughter. No wonder they went to such lengths. More writing. They want to influence his ruling on a mining case. 3 men took me. Wilcox was the last. I managed to get his gun when she stopped writing, her hand trembling. You don't need to explain further, Vaughn said softly. The law will be on your side. She wrote one more line, I cannot speak. The first man choked me so severely that my voice is gone. The doctor in Denver said it might return with time. Vaughn felt a surge of anger on her behalf. We'll get you to a doctor in Silvercliff tomorrow. For now, you should rest. He offered her his bedroll, insisting he was perfectly comfortable with his saddle as a pillow and his coat as a blanket. Though hesitant, Sophia eventually relented, exhaustion overcoming her weariness. As she slept, Vaughn kept watch, stoking the fire and pondering this unexpected turn of events. He'd set out to find a few stray cattle and instead found a woman with secrets as deep as the mountain valleys. Something about her stirred feelings he'd long thought buried, protective instincts, certainly, but something more as well. Dawn broke with a chorus of birdsong. Van woke to find Sophia already up, washing her face in the stream. She'd attempted to comb her hair with her fingers and straighten her tattered dress. Even disheveled, there was an undeniable grace about her. Morning, he called, keeping his distance to avoid startling her. Sleep all right? She nodded, offering a small smile that transformed her face, revealing a dimple in her right cheek. It was the first genuine smile he'd seen from her, and it hit Vaughn with unexpected force. They shared a simple breakfast of hardtack and jerky before Vaughn packed up camp. Silvercliff's about a 3-hour ride, he explained as he saddled Dusk. We'll need to report what happened to Sheriff Parker, then find you a doctor. Sophia nodded, then surprised him by touching his arm lightly. She mimed writing, and he quickly provided the notebook. Thank you for helping me, she wrote. Many would have left me there, or worse. No decent man would do otherwise, Vaughn replied, though her gratitude warmed him. The ride to Silvercliff passed mostly in companionable silence. Occasionally, Sophia would tap his arm and write a question or observation. Vaughn found himself enjoying her notes. She had a sharp mind and a way of noticing details he missed, like the pattern of a hawk's flight, or the first wildflowers of the season peeking through the grass. Silvercliff came into view just before noon. A growing mining town nestled in a valley with false-fronted buildings lining the main street and the constant sound of stamp mills crushing or in the distance. Vaughn guided Dusk directly to the sheriff's office, a sturdy wooden building with a small jail attached. Sheriff Thomas Parker was a grizzled veteran of both the Mexican and Civil Wars, with a silver mustache and shrewd blue eyes that missed little. He listened carefully as Vaughn explained their situation, with Sophia adding written details when needed. Judge Grantham's daughter, Parker mused, examining Sophia's handwriting. He's been raising hell across the territory looking for you. Mississippi sent telegrams to every law office within 200 miles. Sophia's eyes lit up with hope. I'll send word immediately that you're safe, Parker assured her. As for this Wilcox fellow, sounds like clear self-defense to me. I'll ride out with my deputy to retrieve the body and gather evidence. He turned to Vaughn. Jameson, would you escort Miss Grantham to Doc Miller's place? Then perhaps the hotel. She'll need accommodations until her father can arrange transport. Of course, Vaughn agreed, though the thought of parting ways with Sophia created an unexpected hollow feeling in his chest. Dr. Miller confirmed what Sophia already knew. Her vocal cords had been damaged by attempted strangulation, but with rest and time, her voice might return. No guarantees, the elderly physician cautioned, but you're young and otherwise healthy. The body has remarkable healing abilities. From the doctor's office, Vaughn escorted Sophia to Silvercliff's only hotel, a 3-story building with aspirations of grandeur despite its frontier setting. The proprietor, Mrs. Henderson, clucked sympathetically at Sophia's appearance and immediately offered a hot bath and clean clothes. My daughter's about your size, she said kindly. You're welcome to borrow a dress until you can purchase your own. In the hotel lobby, Vaughn found himself suddenly awkward. I suppose this is where we part ways, he said. Sheriff Parker knows where to find me if you need anything else. Sophia quickly scribbled in the notebook. Will you call on me tomorrow? I would like to thank you properly once I'm presentable. I'd be honored, Vaughn replied, tipping his hat. Until tomorrow, Miss Grantham. That night, as Vaughn sat in his rented room above the livery stable, his thoughts kept returning to Sophia. There was something compelling about her resilience, the way she'd survived such an ordeal, yet still noticed beauty in the world around her. He told himself his interest was merely concern for her well-being, but deep down, he recognized it as something more. The next morning, Vaughn found himself taking unusual care with his appearance. He bathed at the barber shop, trimmed his beard, and even purchased a new shirt, extravagances he rarely indulged in. When he called at the hotel at the respectable hour of 11, he barely recognized the woman who greeted him in the small parlor. Sophia had transformed. Wearing a borrowed blue calico dress, her dark hair neatly arranged, she looked every inch the judge's daughter. Only the fading bruise on her cheek and the weariness in her eyes hinted at her recent ordeal. She smiled warmly and handed him a note. "You clean up nicely, Mr. Jameson." "As do you, Miss Grantham," he replied, feeling strangely flustered, "though I reckon you had a bit more work to do than I did." Her silent laugh delighted him, her eyes crinkling at the corners, dimples appearing in both cheeks. She gestured for him to sit and wrote quickly. "Sheriff Parker sent the telegram. Father will arrive in 3 days. He's bringing a specialist physician from Denver." "That's wonderful news," Van said, ignoring the pang of disappointment that their time together would be so brief. Sophia wrote again, "Would you escort me around town today? I've been indoors for weeks." "Nothing would please me more," Vaughn replied truthfully. They spent the day exploring Silver Cliff. Though originally established as a mining camp, the town had grown to include a variety of businesses, a general store, a milliner's shop, 2 saloons, which they passed by, a small lending library, and even an ice cream parlor recently opened by an enterprising Easterner. Vaughn found himself enchanted by Sophia's curiosity. Though she couldn't speak, her expressions were eloquent, delight at discovering a book she loved in the library, compassion when they passed a miner with a missing arm, amusement at the antics of children playing in the street. She communicated constantly through gestures, expressions, and occasional notes. They shared ice cream in the parlor, Sophia closing her eyes in bliss at the rare treat. Vaughn found himself watching her more than enjoying his own dessert, fascinated by the play of emotions across her face. "Tell me about yourself," he requested as they sat together. "Your life before all this." Through a series of notes, Sophia revealed herself, born and raised in Denver, educated at a ladies' seminary in Boston. She had returned to Colorado to keep house for her widowed father. She loved music, played the piano, and had a passion for literature. She'd been considering a teaching position before her abduction. In turn, Vaughn shared his own history. Born in Missouri, orphaned young, he'd worked his way west as a cattle hand from the age of 15. He'd fought briefly in the Civil War, then returned to the life he knew best. He'd been with the Singing Arrow Ranch for 5 years now, saving money with dreams of someday having his own small spread. "Not very exciting compared to your life in Denver," he concluded. Sophia shook her head firmly and wrote, "I find your life fascinating. You've seen so much of this country. You've built everything yourself through your own efforts. That's admirable." Her words warmed him more than they should have. As the afternoon waned, they found themselves walking along the creek that ran behind the town. Spring runoff had the water running high and fast, but wildflowers bloomed along its banks in brilliant patches of color. Sophia stooped to pick a cluster of blue columbines, tucking one into her hair. When she offered another to Vaughn, their fingers brushed, and an unexpected current passed between them. Her eyes widened slightly, meeting his. "Miss Grantham," Vaughn began, then faltered. What could he possibly offer a judge's daughter? He was a cowhand with calloused hands and modest prospects. "I've enjoyed your company greatly today." She smiled, then pointed to herself and nodded vigorously, indicating she felt the same. Over the next 2 days, they fell into a pattern. Vaughn would call on Sophia in the morning, and they would spend hours together walking, visiting shops, or simply sitting in the hotel parlor. Sheriff Parker confirmed that her account of events matched the evidence found at the scene, officially ruling Wilcox's death as justifiable homicide. The news brought visible relief to Sophia. Each evening, Vaughn returned to his rented room above the livery, his thoughts filled with her. He knew he was treading dangerous ground, developing feelings for a woman so far above his station, a woman who would soon return to her life in Denver. Yet, he couldn't help himself. There was something about Sophia Grantham that called to him like nothing ever had. On the third day, knowing her father would arrive the following morning, Vaughn took Sophia riding outside of town. He'd borrowed a gentle mare from the livery, and they rode side by side through meadows splashed with early summer wildflowers. They stopped to rest in a small grove of aspens, their leaves shimmering silver green in the breeze. Sophia sat with her back against a tree trunk, writing in the notebook that had become their constant companion. "I don't want to leave tomorrow," she wrote, her expression serious as she handed him the page. Vaughn's heart quickened. "Your father will be relieved to see you safe." She nodded, then wrote, "Yes, but these days with you have been different, special. I feel safe with you, Vaughn. More than safe." He swallowed hard, staring at his worn boots. "Miss Grantham," she tapped the notebook firmly where she'd written, "Sophia, please." "Sophia," he amended, her name feeling like silk on his tongue. "I'd be lying if I said I wasn't feeling something, too. But you're a judge's daughter with education and prospects. I'm just a cowhand." She frowned and wrote quickly. "Do you think so little of me that you believe such things matter to me after what I've experienced?" "No, but," she held up her hand to stop him, then wrote for several minutes, her pencil moving furiously across the page. When she handed him the notebook, he read, "What matters to me is that when you found me, you showed kindness without expectation. You respected my silence and my space. You've made me laugh when I thought I might never feel joy again. You've shown me beauty in simple things, wildflowers, mountain views, the way light catches on water. I've spent my life among gentlemen of society who speak eloquently while saying nothing of substance. You speak simply, but with honesty and integrity that is worth more than any social position." Vaughn read her words twice, emotion tightening his throat. When he looked up, Sophia was watching him intently, vulnerability plain in her dark eyes. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she wrote. "But I don't want this to be goodbye." Vaughn took her hand gently. "What are you saying, Sophia?" She took a deep breath, then, to his astonishment, her lips moved. What emerged was barely audible, a raspy whisper painfully formed. "Vaughn." His name, just his name, spoken in a voice damaged but determined. It was the first word she'd spoken since he found her, and hearing it knocked the breath from his lungs. The fact that his name was her first chosen word sent a bolt of emotion through him so powerful he thought his heart might burst. "Sophia," he whispered back, his voice equally strained, but for different reasons. She winced at the effort speaking had cost her, but her eyes shone with triumph and something else, something that mirrored the feelings swirling in his own chest. Carefully giving her every chance to pull away, Vaughn leaned forward. Their lips met in a kiss as gentle as a whisper, a question asked and answered in the same breath. When they parted, Sophia's smile was radiant despite the tears in her eyes. "I don't know what happens next," Van admitted. "Your life is in Denver. Mine is here." She picked up the notebook again. "Father will insist I return with him initially. I need time to heal fully, but nothing says I must stay in Denver forever. And nothing says a skilled ranch hand couldn't find work near the territorial capital." Hope bloomed in Van's chest. "Are you suggesting I follow you to Denver?" She nodded, then wrote, "Only if you want to. I would never ask you to abandon your dreams." "Sophia," he said softly, taking both her hands in his. "In the past few days, my dreams have changed. I still want my own land someday, but now I can't imagine that future without you in it." Her eyes glistened with tears as she leaned forward to kiss him again, this time with more certainty, her hands moving to frame his face. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Vaughn rested his forehead against hers. "Your father might have something to say about his daughter taking up with a cowboy," he murmured. Sophia reached for the notebook. "Father values character above all else. He'll judge you by your actions, not your occupation, and your actions saved his daughter." The next morning dawned clear and cool. Judge Edward Grantham arrived on the early stage, a tall, imposing man with silver-streaked dark hair and the same deep brown eyes as his daughter. Beside him was a distinguished-looking gentleman Vaughn assumed was the physician. Sophia flew into her father's arms the moment he stepped down from the coach. The judge embraced her fiercely, his stern countenance crumbling into naked relief. Vaughn stood back, allowing them their reunion. When Sophia finally pulled away, she took her father's hand and led him to where Vaughn waited. She gestured between them, her meaning clear even without words. "Judge Grantham," Vaughn said, extending his hand. "Vaughn Jameson. I'm mighty pleased to see your daughter reunited with you, sir." The judge's handshake was firm. "Mr. Jameson, Sheriff Parker's telegram mentioned you extensively. It seems I owe you a debt I can never repay." "No debt, Your Honor. Any decent man would have done the same." The judge's shrewd eyes assessed him carefully. "Perhaps, but not every man would have shown the respect and care you've demonstrated toward my daughter in her vulnerable state." He glanced at Sophia, who was watching them intently. "She's written me quite a letter about you this morning." Vaughn felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Sir, no need for explanations, young man. My daughter has excellent judgment of character. It's one of her finest qualities." The judge's expression softened slightly. "She tells me you might consider employment opportunities near Denver." "I've been giving it some thought, sir." "Good. I happen to know of several reputable ranches in need of experienced hands." The judge's eyes twinkled with unexpected humor. "And my home has an excellent stable master's cottage that currently sits empty." Sophia beamed, slipping her arm through Vaughn's. "That's generous, Your Honor," Vaughn said carefully. "But I wouldn't want to presume, young man," the judge interrupted. "My daughter has been through an ordeal few could survive with their spirit intact. If you are part of the reason her eyes are shining again, I'd be a poor father indeed to stand in the way of her happiness." He glanced at Sophia. "Though I do expect proper courtship protocols to be observed." Sophia nodded eagerly, then surprised both men by speaking, her voice still raspy but slightly stronger than the day before. "Thank you, Father." The judge's eyes widened. "Your voice coming back," she whispered, smiling up at Vaughn. Slowly 3 months later, Vaughn stood in the garden behind Judge Grantham's Denver home, watching as Sophia played a simple melody on the piano through the open window. Her voice was returning steadily, not yet strong enough for singing, but she could carry on conversations, each word a gift he never took for granted. He'd found work at the Triple R Ranch just outside Denver, his experience at the Singing Arrow earning him a position as assistant foreman. The work was good, the pay better than he'd known before, and most importantly, it allowed him to court Sophia properly. Her recovery had been remarkable in many ways. Though she still startled at sudden movements and occasionally woke from nightmares, her resilient spirit had prevailed. The men responsible for her abduction had been captured and were awaiting trial, with her father recusing himself from the case to ensure justice without bias. Sophia finished her piece and turned on the piano bench, spotting him through the window. Her smile, that radiant smile that first captured his heart by a campfire in the wilderness, bloomed across her face. She rose gracefully and came to join him in the garden, slipping her hand into his. "Spying on me, Mr. Jameson," she teased, her voice soft but clear in the evening air. "Admiring from afar, Miss Grantham," he corrected, bringing her hand to his lips. She laughed, a sound he never tired of hearing. Father has gone to his study. He claims to have important papers to review, but I suspect he's giving us a few moments of privacy. Your father is a wise man. He approves of you, you know, more than he's approved of any suitor I've ever had." Vaughn's heart quickened. "Is that what I am, a suitor?" Sophia turned to face him fully, her dark eyes serious. "What would you call yourself? A man desperately in love?" Vaughn answered honestly. "A man who can't imagine his future without you in it." Her breath caught. "Vaughn, I know it's only been 3 months," he continued quickly. "I know proper courtship should take longer, but Sophia, when I found you in those woods, something changed in me, and every day since has only confirmed what I think I knew even then." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, his savings from 5 years of work transformed into a modest diamond ring. Dropping to one knee on the garden path, he looked up at the woman who had captured his heart with her silence and then broken it wide open when she first spoke his name. "Sophia Grantham, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded vigorously. Then, in a voice growing stronger every day, a voice he would cherish for the rest of his life, she gave him her answer. "Yes, Vaughn Jameson, 1,000 times, yes." 5 years later, Vaughn stood on the porch of their ranch house, watching as Sophia sat in the grass with their 3-year-old daughter, Emma, and infant son, Thomas. The Rolling J Ranch, named for both their surnames, Jameson Grantham, was smaller than the Singing Arrow, but entirely their own. Built with a combination of Vaughn's savings, Sophia's inheritance from her mother, and a wedding gift from Judge Grantham, it represented everything they had dreamed of that day in the aspen grove. Sophia looked up, catching his gaze. "Admiring from afar again?" she called, her voice now fully restored to its natural melodious tone. "Always," he replied with a smile, descending the steps to join his family. As Emma clambered into his lap and Thomas gurgled happily in Sophia's arms, Vaughn reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them here. From a gunshot in the woods to a life filled with love, from silence to the most beautiful words he'd ever heard. "I love you," Sophia said softly, reading his thoughts as she so often did. "And I love you," he replied, leaning over to kiss her gently, "more than words can say." She smiled, the same smile that had first taken his breath away, the same smile that still did. "Then it's a good thing," she whispered, "that some things don't need words at all."